want to take the time to talk about something that is so meaningful and valuable to me personally, and this may not be a surprise. It is communication. Right now, we are in the phase of, I don't know how many pandemics, but let's say at least two: COVID-19 and injustice. And there's just a lot of topics that are very emotionally charged that we talk about. And I see this all the time on social media right now, that people just like guilt each other and offend each other for having an opinion and for doing this and for doing that. And I just don't think that's the right way to communicate with each other. And I get it. It's so hard when we disagree on something that is so important to us. So important and so meaningful. And we have such strong opinions. And I think the greatest value that we can bring into a conversation, into society, is being kind and being compassionate with each other and want to learn. I want you to be interested and curious about what I have to say, or what my heart is, or what I think, period. And I want to get to know you in the same way. I might not agree, and you might not agree with me, but I think it's so beautiful when we just want to learn from each other, with each other. How can we be better humans? How can we be a better listener? Because if we're really honest, at least that's my theory, everyone in this world loves to be listened to in one way or another. That means that we need great listeners. And I don't mean the listeners that are just waiting for their term to speak or for their time. It's really the listener that is curious about what the other person has to say and willing to learn, right? So I feel like right now we're in a time where this is such a big, potent topic that is almost the only thing I can think about right now to provide and give. Because what I'm going to share now today is something that has worked for me so well. And it might not work for anyone else in this world, but I'd give it a shot to share my tips and tricks here. And I think there's two types of conversations. There's one that we avoid and we run away from, or we actually, but we know that we have to have it. We have to have it because there's something in us just boiling and it's just going to be exploding at some point. To avoid that, or to avoid that we ghost each other and just ignore what's happening, let's lean in. Let's try to lean into a conversation and prepare ourselves and our mindset and our thoughts for that conversation, to have it. Because I think, why are we running away from those? And this is also, okay, so the second, let's finish one thought here. The second conversation of types of conversation, I think, is the one that are just evolving naturally out of a conversation, right? Sometimes you end up in a really heated conversation and you're like, oh my God, how did we end up here? So that is a different type of conversation that we're going to talk about today. And the tips that we're going to talk about today can still be applied to that one for sure. So I think we're avoiding. A lot of us are avoiders. And for me, that's one of the most painful things to experience, when people avoid me, or when people avoid, not me, but people avoid a conversation that would be really, really, really helpful for us as a relationship, as a dynamic. It would be really important for me and probably for that person too. But we're running away because maybe, I don't know, our parents modeled that we're just going to brush everything under the rug or rock, and we're just not going to look at it. We're just going to ignore it and act like it's not there. So that's what we learned. Or we learned that if we did speak up, then we got hit, or we lost our friends, or we got tortured with something. So we learned that it's not safe to speak up and have a conversation, or it always ended up in a fight, or maybe even we lost a relationship, we lost a lover, we lost a friend, we lost a good relationship with our parents or other family members because we spoke our truth. So there's a lot of programming in our systems that tell us maybe it's not safe and it's not worth it to have a conversation that seems complex and difficult. And I believe very, very, very strongly that that doesn't have to be our truth and our reality anymore. I believe that we can change that paradigm when we know the tools for that. I always think about this. Like, if somebody would tell me right now, can you fix my car? I'm like, I don't know. I don't think you should trust me. I'm going to not do that. But if you tell me, okay, here's the tools that you need, here are the tools that you need, here are the YouTube videos you should watch, and here's how you build an engine or fix an engine. I don't even know what I'm talking about. So see, but it's scary to me to do that, because maybe once I did that, I broke the car in the past. I probably didn't break a car, but I did break some radials in the past when I was younger and I tried to fix them. So I better not touch that anymore. But if somebody is there that shares some tools, some insights, and gives me a guideline that I can use and become a better engineer, maybe a communication engineer, conversation engineer, it's better. So this is what I'm trying to do here today. Okay. So, and one really big part of this is going to be the preparation of the conversation. And then the second is, what do we actually do when we are in this conversation? And also, what's our mindset if that other person doesn't want to have the conversation? Right? Because that's possible too, that we want to have a conversation and they're avoiding us, or they're avoiding the conversation. So it's never really personal, right? When I say they're avoiding me, I'm avoiding them. Like, it's just we're avoiding some action, but we're not avoiding the person. All right, let's dive right into this. I already talked way more than I actually wanted to talk, but that's fine. It's totally fine. Okay, let's start with one thing. Let's start with becoming clear on what you want to have a conversation about. So when the topic is clear, right? Like, let's say, let's work with two examples here. Let's say I want to have a conversation with Paul about social distancing and our behaviors and how I might not be okay with how he is going through the world right now. And I want to have that conversation, but I know that he has a really strong opinion that is very different than mine. But I really want to talk about that. I want to talk about behavior of social distancing. Let's name that as a topic. And I want to talk about a different thing with Maggie. I want to talk about the way Maggie is my roommate, and I want to talk with Maggie about the way we greet each other, the way we make each other feel home at home, and that there is something between us that I don't know what it is yet, but there's something that I'm not really happy about here. Okay. So this is great. What is my intention, or what are my intention for this conversation? That's a good question to ask yourself too. So if I know with Paul, I want to talk about social distancing, do I want to share my opinion? Do I want to just feel expressed? Do I want to be heard? Do I want to be listened to? Or do I actually want to listen to the other person? Do I want both? Do I want to have a debate and, do I want to really have an exchange here? Or is it just that I want to initiate something? With, for example, with Maggie, I could just maybe initiate a dialogue about how do we want to set our home up, right? Or is my intention to end a relationship or to end a topic or a project? Because this is also for at work, right? We have so many relationships at work. Or is my intention to clarify something or to understand something better, or to change, to really call in a change. And no matter what the intention is, something is always extremely important: attachment. Oftentimes we get disappointed, we get so heated up because we have an expectation, even though it's an unconscious expectation. But maybe the expectation is that the other person agrees with us, or the other person changes something in our interest. We have to detach ourselves from an expected shared vision as an outcome. So if you expect the other person to agree with you, or to apologize, or to change their behavior for you, you are setting yourself up for disappointment. So make the intention about your goal, because you cannot control any other person and no other behavior but your own. So one of my first tips here is journal about it. I'm a huge journaler. Or I talk a lot with my friends about this before I even talk with that person about it, just to get it in my mind clear. And it doesn't have to do anything with gossiping. It's just really, okay, listen, these are my thoughts right now. Because once you put into words what is only in your head and has been in your head, maybe for weeks, maybe for months, maybe even longer, and maybe just for a day and it seems like it's been forever, it does make sense, right? But once you put it in words, it doesn't that much oftentimes. I mean, that's at least how it is for me. And that's why journaling really helps, or talking with a really, really good friend that you trust, right? And because maybe you realize the key points of the topic, of your intentions that you really want to share. And maybe if you do share it with your friend, maybe he or she reflects it back to you and helps you to really clarify, right? So maybe let's stay with that example of Paul and social distancing. Maybe I come to the conclusion that it's not so much about what he does, but it is actually about how he walks into my space without checking in with me. Maybe that's really annoying to me. Or maybe that's just, I don't feel safe, but I don't know how to tell him that I don't want him to be in our home space indoors because I don't feel safe. Maybe that's something, and I don't like his behavior of saying that it is and not even questioning that it might not be for other people. And with Maggie, let's say, in our environment at home, maybe it comes down to that maybe I'm realizing what I need. Maybe I'm realizing that I don't need all the decluttering and super tidy home. But what I need is checking in with each other every morning. Just sharing, what's your day going to be like? What are we excited about today? So that we're just kind of together. Maybe that's something I want, right? That's the first thing. So just becoming clear of what is our topic that we actually want to talk about. Usually it's pretty present, but diving a little bit deeper, what are the intentions, right? And then the second step, how to let the other person know that you want to talk about something. Remember, Paul and Maggie don't know anything about my thoughts and my feelings that I have or have had in the last days, years. So, however long that's been, right? And it's been processing in my head, and I've been creating stories in my head that might also not be true, but that's a different story. But the fact is that the other person hasn't had the time that I had while I'm just building new trains of thoughts in my head. So I need to pick the other people up, right? So I need to make the message I want to deliver, I need to make it digestible. So me personally, I'm learning this part big time because it is very easy for me to just overrun someone and go right into it, and the other person's like, where did that come from, Steffi? Like, what the fuck? So we want to not do that. We want to be more gentle and say, hey, listen, this is something I've been thinking about. So here's what's important. Share with the other person the important parts of the process that you have had and on your mind. And that can be in text form, in audio, or in person, whatever feels more natural for you too. right? So if it was in text form, it could be like, hey, Paul, I've been thinking about you and something I want to talk about. It is about, or it has to do with, in this example, it has to do with the way we are close to each other and when we are together and in person. And I understand if this is surprising to you, it would mean a lot to me if we both find time to have a conversation about this. Would you be open to that? I mean, this is just this is just what I think could be very helpful. And there is no right or wrong words as long as you make it as an invitation. I think that is really important, that you give the other person a chance to think about it and say no if they're not a yes to it, right? Because think about it, it may just not be a priority for Paul or Maggie right now to talk about this stuff with me. Because especially right now, but in general, that's something we always have to remember, that there is a lot going on in the world. And nobody else sees what I am wearing on my shoulders all the time. I'm carrying on my shoulders, right? I'm going through in my thoughts and my emotions, everything. So, what I think is so important right now might just really not be that important for anyone else. So, again, there is a step here for me to detach myself from the expectation that this conversation will happen, either at all or in the time frame that I want it to happen. I know, it sucks. It sucks so bad to realize this, because for me personally, I want it to get done now and I want to get into it, right? And I want to process it right now. And I often run into that scenario that either people aren't ready or, again, they're avoiding it, right? But no matter what, again, I can control that part. I can control that part. What I can't control is that I want to give people the room and the choice that feels good for them. Because if I'm really, really honest, I only want to have that conversation with people that share the same value and at least care enough to try to make time if they know it's so meaningful to me. And I want both of us to be fully present, right? And I don't want to have this conversation with someone that is not really present here, that doesn't really want to do it, and because it didn't give them the choice to say no, right? So this is also, again, detachment. Like, I can want something, but I don't need it. And that's where another tip comes in, that in that moment, what does success mean to me? Like, what is success right now? Is success that Paul says yes to having this conversation with me? Or is success that I took all the courage it took me to make that really vulnerable request? Or is it that I found the right words despite my anger and frustration, making a kind of nonviolent request? Or is it that I expressed my heart and my desire even when it's scary? Or that I stepped into integrity in a situation that I usually didn't or have avoided it? I want to go with all the ones except the first one, because this is already success. All of this, just making that request, is already success. And if you truly see this as being the success, the detachment automatically happens, right? So really journal even about what defines success for you in this very certain situation, because the success is only in your hands. So don't put your success in anybody else's hands. So I'm not going to put it in Paul's hands, because those are just not the hands that I want to put my success into. All right, so now that we're clear on our topic, we made the request because we're clear on our topic, we're clear on our intention, and we found the right words to make a request and let the other person know that we want to talk about something with them, right? And we gave them the option to say yes, no, or maybe. So let's start with a yes. With a yes, that would be basically, yeah, sure. When is a good time, right? So now you're just really, really nailing it down. Very important. Date and time. Include all the details, the location, dinner. Do you want to bring a blanket? Set yourself up for clarity that provides relaxation, right? So it's very important too. How much time are we blocking for this conversation? So, one thing I really go by is I always want to minimize the assumptions and optimize clarity. So, when timing, right? Are you sure you want to do this after a travel day or after a full day of work, spending time with your kids or parents? Like, give yourself realistic estimations to be fully present. Okay? Once those details are clear, you have your date, you have your, I mean, what happened to me once, I made a request that was quite vulnerable. And then the person was like, yeah, sure, right now. And I'm like, oh my God, no, not right now. And then I had to circle back. I was like, how about in 2 hours? Right? Because I wasn't ready. I was ready to make the request, but I wasn't ready to have the conversation yet. It's beautiful to have people around you that are just, oh yeah, absolutely. And then give yourself also the permission to find the right time and space for yourself. Okay. When the other person says a clear no to your request, right? You just made the request. Can you talk about something that's meaningful to me? It is about XYZ. And the other person says no. And I don't mean the no with no answer. That's a maybe. I mean the no, right? It might hurt in the very beginning. Right? It might feel like a rejection. Or it might feel like you don't really matter to them. But thank God you redefine success for yourself. Otherwise, this would hurt. And if the person is already, I mean, it seems like, if they're able to say no to that request, they have the courage to say that, what is true to them right now, and tell you that it's not a priority for them. And again, it's not personal. It's not that you aren't a priority for them. It's that that topic and that conversation right now with you is not a priority for them. Then whatever they have on their shoulders right now, they might be able to only have very little room for that, and it might not be presence. Like they might not be able to be present with you right now. And your response is compassion, because this is Paul's truth, and maybe it took a lot for Paul to be vulnerable enough and courageous enough to tell you that, right? And I would say thank you so much, right? Thank you so much for your honesty and replying to me with your truth. And I would add, if that is genuine for me, I would add that I'm available for this conversation whenever you are ready, to just show my availability. And I'm allowing myself to change my mind, right? Like if Paul comes back to me in 5 months, because pandemic isn't over in 5 months, and we're still debating if mask is okay and how many people are we allowed to really see or hug or whatever, then, and it seems to be important for him then, and maybe I moved on and maybe I processed it so much and maybe I'm just over that part, right? Then I know I don't have the need to please him, and I'm also allowed to say, okay, listen, like I know I said that 5 months ago that I'm available, but actually I'm realizing I'm not available anymore. But I appreciate your request. Right? That's it. We don't have to fall into self-doubt, or we don't have to fall into apologies. That's okay. We're human, we change our minds. And we can't please everyone. We don't want to please everyone. And what if the person is aggressive or pissed or annoyed? Like, they say, how can you even ask me to have this conversation or whatever? I don't even know. I don't have a lot of those conversations or responses, but I know they exist and they feel disrespectful. Even then, or especially then, thank God and let them know that you're really thankful for their no, because that might not be a person you want to be really close with. And if that is a family member, I don't want you to say no to family members unless you feel really called to. And then, whatever. The families are so complex. But we don't have to turn our backs to them. Is that what you say? Yeah, I think so. That is saying. we don't have to like turn away completely from them, and we can just with ourselves know that that's not something I want to be with, or that's not a dynamic, or that's not a level of emotional intimacy maybe that I want to be engaged with that person, because that does not seem healthy. And what we don't respond to aggressiveness or disrespect. We don't respond in the same way. We respond with kindness, because that would take energy from us and we want to be a better person. We really do. And no matter how much you can have frustrations and emotions, let it out, but not towards another person. That nobody deserves it, really. And I'm going to go more into that, because now we come to a maybe, right? So what if Paul and Maggie say maybe? And what does that mean? So it could be, I don't know, what do you mean by that? Right? So that is a great response, because now we're in a space to clarify. Yay! You now get a chance to pick the person up, to let them know how this topic impacts you and what part is really important to you, and you're able to share just more details and ask if that makes sense now, right? If that was clear, and then let them know to decide. Right? So this is all about clarification, and at least there's a conversation going on. If another maybe is, let me get back to you later. Cool. I appreciate that, right? And I will let them know, cool, yeah, sure, I appreciate that. And because this could be like that they really want to be present with the topic or think about this, if they have time, if they don't have time. So that's cool. And if it makes you nervous and anxious more and more with every minute passing by that Paul doesn't respond, clarify for your own sanity. Do you have a time frame that you want to get back to me, that you think about you will get back to me? Is it more tomorrow or tonight or in a week? And you can also ask for consent to check in with them again. If you haven't heard from them in a week, let him know, or them, that it relaxes you to know that, because there's fear that the person might not get back to you, right? And at this point, what can you lose? I mean, you've already been very vulnerable. Just go all the way in. Go all the way in and let them see you and your vulnerable self, and be the invitation to be that for them too. Right? By you showing up so vulnerably and really letting them know, hey, cool, I appreciate that you want to get back to me later. For me right now, it's a really sensitive topic, and I'm a little nervous, so is it okay if I check in with you if I haven't heard in a week or so from you about this? Because, right, yeah, well, you already said that it's pretty vulnerable. So, and if that seems like, oh my God, I don't want to be too much, I don't want to be too complicated, fuck that. That is not even in the game here. Too complicated and too much does not exist, because you're taking care of yourself, and you are actually a gift to the other person, because you let the other person get to know you in the most vulnerable way. So this is perfect. This is perfect, and you are perfect. If that is your truth and your real feelings, do it and say it and speak it. So what if they say, let me get back to you, and that's it, and they never do? Say, Maggie never responds to me. Here we go, avoidance, right? Ouch. What I was just talking about earlier. This is, I mean, for me personally, this is one of the most painful ways to communicate with me, to avoid me. And you know what? Again, thank God at this point, if Maggie avoids me, thank God I redefine success. And I know that I could already celebrate my request. No matter, it can still be very sad for me, because I really want to have this conversation. And I also remember that every person at this very moment does their best, with the best ability, with the tools they have available, with what they know, with all their trauma on their shoulders, in their systems, they know and do their best. And whatever I'm feeling in this situation is valid. And, for example, if we feel in that situation anger, frustration, sadness, hurt, and pain, let it out and find an outlet, and don't let it be Paul or Maggie, but express it in a way of dance or hitting a towel or calling a friend or just crying or going for a run. Just don't hold on to that and then store it as blockages in your body. Speak with a coach, do something, speak with a friend, a therapist, again, dance or move or scream, but let it out. Let yourself feel what this situation causes you, right? And also, if you have the option and opportunity, let yourself be held by a friend or a partner and heard. And do not skip these steps. Do not skip the do not skip the step of feeling your emotions, because you have to be on the positive side, and thank God we redefined success and now I'm not heard. No, we're not in denial. We're honest with ourselves. We have those emotions. We are human, and we're going to let these emotions out, not to Paul, not to Maggie, not to anyone else that causes this problem right now, or these feelings, not a problem, these feelings, so that we have processes, we have felt it, and then we can move on with peace and vitality and new feelings that we then can allow, because the other ones are allowed to leave, right? We've done that. Emotions are all energy in motion, right? We're letting them flow in and out. And if we don't do that, we get stuck. And I mean, I'm sure everyone who's listening right now, watching this, we've had moments in our lives repetitively where we brushed things under the rug. And the rug is full. There is no space under the rug anymore. Basta. No hay más. Right? So we're learning to not avoid other people, even though they're avoiding us. We're not avoiding our own feelings. Right? And, after we've done processing those feelings, good questions to ask ourselves is, what or how is this situation serving me? Right? What am I learning about myself here? And honestly, that we get a no answer from that person might be the clearest answer that we can get ever from a person, right? So, for instance, because I've had these situations and I've journaled a lot about this, and I ask myself a lot, where does this come from? What am I learning here? What is this good for me? And I noticed that I'm so highly sensitive to no responses or ghosting or whatever, because my mom used to do that with me when she was upset. And of course, I gave her good reasons to be upset, right? I crossed many lines, and she would not talk to me in the morning, at night, whenever we saw each other in the house when we lived together. I mean, I was a teenager. She would just ignore me until I begged her to talk to me again, right? And even later, she would hang up on phone calls when we were in an argument. And when I discovered how much this affects me and how not just angry but sad I am, and I'm afraid of losing her. I'm afraid of being dropped. I'm afraid of losing this connection to my mom. It is the first and most intensive and loving and intimate relationship I know. That I'm afraid of losing that every time she ignores me and she hangs up on me. Once I was clear about that effect on me, I could work with it, and I knew that's not the truth. That's not her intention at all. And I let her know. I let her know how this affects me, and that I'm really asking for not let that happen again, because I'm trying to do a better job here as a daughter too, right? So I'm not trying to push all the buttons anymore. And I'm asking you to please don't hurt my feelings again in that way. And I understood why she did it. She had hurt feelings too, right? She had a lot of stuff to deal with. And she did it in her best own way at that moment to protect herself, probably too. Because I don't believe she wanted to traumatize me in that way at all, right? I know for certain that that was not her intention. So when I let her know, that was the last time she actually did that. And so, just sharing again, this was a vulnerable share from my side, and sharing with other people how it makes us feel is crucial and is a chance to make a change, right? To really deepen the relationship and improve the relationship, right? And sometimes, coming back to the no response, sometimes a person just needs a long time to respond, to process and to respond. And if they don't respond, check in with them maybe later, and let them know how that made you feel. Like, hi, Paul, I wanted to check in with you about my request I made a month ago. I'm feeling like hanging in the air or don't know what's going on. It's very uncomfortable for me, and I understand that you have other things going on that require your time and presence. I still would love to know if you're considering having a conversation with me about XYZ or not, or if you have any questions. Right now, it feels like I'm ignored or avoided, which is very hurtful. And knowing you, I don't think that is your intention. Please let me know where you are with this. I appreciate you. That would be beautiful, right? That's something I would do probably just to give it another chance. And just this would be my last shot for me to kind of know, okay, right? Like, because I also see the risk that in that situation we could fall into self-doubt, that we shouldn't have said this or we shouldn't have asked for this. But coming back to, if this was your truth, you did great. And if Paul doesn't know how to communicate better right now, this moment, and how to appreciate you for your steps, for your courage, then maybe you wouldn't even have been able to have that conversation with him anyway. So at least not the way you want to have the conversation, right? So, because we all love being respected. I mean, I sure love that, right? And so we can respect each other and we can ask for respect, and just making sure this one last time in a really kind way, and not using the words of, hey, you don't do this, but just letting them know where we are and making a request, right? Again, being a permissionary of vulnerability. Okay, so if maybe or no, there are some options you can do. And most importantly, do not apologize, feel bad, or anything like that for asking for what you want. Celebrate that you asked for it and stay confident, compassionate, and true to yourself. That is the last thing I want to say about that, because now I want to actually, move forward with, what if that person said yes and we also have a date and what's now, right? So let's go back.